The West Virginia Mountaineers are a beat-up football team with 11 players on the offense alone on the injury report, and now add Nicco Marchiol to that growing list.
You are Locked On West Virginia, your daily podcast on the West Virginia Mountaineers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, guys? Welcome back in. My name is Mountaineer Paul. I am your host, and this is Locked On West Virginia, baby, where we're talking about the Mountaineers again on the football side of things today. Baby. Listen, guys, it's rough right now on the football side of things. Injury after injury is beginning to pile up. So it is what it is with that. But look, before we get started on that opinion, let's talk about the title sponsor for the opening here with Game Time. Right now, guys, download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase where the terms apply. But I'm not doing it alone. I'm doing it with the man, the myth, the legend, the newly fired football fan coach thing. I don't know. Cody Stillwater, Locked On Oklahoma State.
Just for clarification, I did not get fired. Okay. But I also don't have a mullet, and I also don't make almost $7 million a year. So just for clarification purposes.
Right. Just for clarification.
Yeah. Although I think I could make the argument that I also could have made $7 million this year to coach Oklahoma State to a 1-10 season, but that's beside the point. I feel for you with Nicco. I think West Virginia has offensively been pretty fun to watch for most of this season. I also feel you, our man Jaden Bray, right, has a foot injury, and then Nicco has a foot injury, and guess what? Quarterback has a foot injury that culminated with Mike Gundy losing his job. So if you want a really good take or good advice, you should ask Mike Gundy how he feels about quarterbacks and broken feet.
Yeah.
Oh, and additionally, I will say, if I'm a WV fan, I might be slightly concerned about him heading to Colorado because that's where I went and they cut my leg off. So there's that.
Yeah, for those you don't know, Cody Stillwater is a legless man, but he hops everywhere, so he's fine.
That's right.
Obviously, we're going to get to the Nicco seeing a specialist thing. We're going to let Rich Rod tell it here in a second. In segment 2, obviously, there's a lot of chatter about Wren Baker in Oklahoma State. I want to see where the Oklahoma State perspective is on that with Cody in segment 2, and then we'll get to the final toss in segment 3. So let's go here and listen to Rich Rodriguez. Thanks again to Blue Gold News, who always is very kind to let me play their clips. Let's see what he had to say about the Nicco situation just a little bit ago.
And then Nicco Marchiol came to see us and said he had some midfoot pain and had been bothering for a while. And so he is today, I think he has we got a great medical staff, by the way. I trust them with 100%. And, as a coach, I stay out of the medical part of that, of course, and leave it to the experts. But Nicco, I think they have a specialist out in Colorado that he knows that he's actually out there today getting that checked out because he says it's been bothering him for a couple weeks. And so he's going to be questionable as well.
Am I picking up on something there? And maybe I'm overthinking this, Cody. How many games in the season are we?
Just three for us.
Did you hear Rich Rod clarify that they trust their staff 100%?
I did.
And he's seen his own specialist in Colorado. Things aren't going well for him right now in Morgantown. This is just coming to me right now in the moment. Do you think Nicco could be setting himself up to redshirt or something here? Do you see where I'm trying to get to? Why are they seeing their own specialist?
Well, I mean, it is possible. And I think you can look directly back to Oklahoma State, right, which is why there's a good correlation here. Haas Haney, right, I had heard when he was down in the locker room that what it was, and it could be at least 6 weeks, all that. And then there was an article put out by Robert Allen, or he talked about it on his radio show that Haas could be back by homecoming. And then Haas's own dad came out and said, hold on now, we don't know that, right? That to me is an indication of a business decision. Do I like it?
Business decision.
Do I like it? No, I do not.
No.
But for starters, our offensive line is.
Would you want to play behind that thing?
Precisely, right? You cannot knock them in this new day and age. And to some degree, Nico's the same. Yeah, you guys came off a massive backyard brawl. I will say that I think Nico's is probably more of
sounds like turf toe, doesn't it?
What's up?
Mid-foot pain. So for those of you who don't know how turf toe works, let's say this is the toe right here, and this is the bottom of the foot. Turf toe is this ligament here that connects the toe to the middle of the foot. That's what turf toe actually is. Curious with mid-foot pain if it could be a turf toe situation.
Well, like with Haas, I think it was a cuboid bone. It's just the bone on the furthest outside. But
could be a bone, yeah.
The top of the metatarsals are somewhat fragile as far as size of bones in your body. So anything is possible. And the question that you asked, I think, is very relevant.
Yeah. Why would you go see your own specialist? That means that he's disagreeing with somebody in Morgantown, right?
Well, no, that's because somebody in his corner, whether it be an agent, lawyer, somebody is saying that, hey, you need a
second opinion.
Yes, you need to go do this, right? And call it what you want to call it. In today's landscape of college football, it's hard to knock it, right? Because and people mention all the time, coaches can leave whenever they want. They can essentially do a multitude of things. Well, players are to some degree handcuffed. And I'll tell you, this is why I personally do believe that something like a Kappa Players Association is beneficial for collegiate athletes at some point in time for more protections like this. But I do think that he's getting advice outside of West Virginia that could be predicated upon a future business move. Right? It's even if it's not true, right? The fact that we live in the landscape that we do now, you have to at least approach the subject.
Yeah, at least have to approach the subject.
It's again correlating it to the Haas thing. I don't think anybody in Cowboy country is going to look at Haas begrudgingly if he does make a business decision to not come back and play behind this putrid offensive line and this horrendous disaster of an offensive system. I can't blame him. I don't think it's the same for Nicco. I think his situation is a little bit different. And I also think that if it's comparable to a Haas-Haney injury, it is going to put him in a position that, much like, in my opinion, Haas-Haney, it'll be contingent upon what your record is. For example, if Oklahoma State was 5-1 or 6-2 or something to that effect, and then Haas-Haney was cleared,
he'd be back,
right? Because you're in contention for a Big 12 title.
Yeah.
But if we're 2-4 or 1-5, there's no reason for him to come back. And as much as it pains me to say that as an Oklahoma State fan, because I was one of those old school people, right, that said, "Oh, you're not loyal, you're not true, you can't stick it out, you don't belong here."
You play behind them then.
Well, and you know. That conversation changes once you have relationships with a decent amount of players. Because then you hear about it from their perspective. Then you hear about some of the things that are said in the locker room that are not true when it pertains to NIL or playing time or depth chart or whether you should transfer or not. So there are a lot of things that players get screwed every single day. Again, I'd circle this back around. This is why I think things like Kappa are very important to these collegiate athletes, because we all know this. Probably 85% of agents have their best interest in mind for the clients. Yeah.
There are those.
There's going to be some of those out there. Listen, and it's the same reason they would not want a players association, because if they can go get their favorite quarterback $6 million, they're going to go do it. Right. And they're going to tell their client, well, this is what you probably should do. You should probably enter the portal. You should probably leave this team. You should probably explore X, Y, or Z university. And I think that players, athletes, they need more protections than they currently physically have, even
from themselves sometimes. Yes. Because you can't help if there's some naivete involved. Like, for instance, I had an agent call me in the offseason of 2023 when Josh Eilert got the head coaching job in West Virginia basketball and say, "Hey, I see you had that Tucker DeVries guy on, and I'd make a mistake of talking publicly about how much money I raised to get him on, which was $1,000 for 20 minutes, right? It's a lot of money to pay a guy to come on your show."
Hey, kudos to you. I've never paid for a guest, but I respect the hustle.
I wanted to help. You know what I mean? I wanted to be involved.
Well, I've also never had a guest like Darian DeVries, so let's put that out
right,
there too.
Tucker DeVries. But yeah, so, obviously I had an agent call me up and say, "Hey, man, we might come to West Virginia if you can get something like that kind of talk." Right. Obviously, the kind of money they're going for is much larger than that. But the way I looked at it was, oh, okay, this is some shady dude that's trying to make $800 off of me and give his client $200 to just go on this show real quick for 20 minutes and talk about how you like your West Virginia visit, because he had visited, right? So it's like there was a correlation. And like, obviously I've got that guy's number saved on my phone, and anytime he calls, I know it's some BS. He's called me like 2 or 3 times, like, and it's always some kind of shady business, so it's like, but I keep his number because it tips me off to certain things that are happening. One time I didn't even know there was a guy on our campus that it was visiting, and he called and like, hey, I guess he just assumes I know sometimes. I don't always know. We don't always know.
Right.
But yeah, so obviously we're off track a bit here. Nicco Marchiol was seen a specialist in Colorado. If you're just joining, Rich Rodriguez confirmed at the press conference today. Obviously right guard Kimo Makaniole, right tackle Tykes Crawford, both hurt, which have been really bad at times this year as well for West Virginia. And so, my brain can't help but go to, could these be good excuses to replace these players with as well? Not so much Nicco as much as the offensive linemen go, because I think Nicco is more of a product of the offensive line than anything. If we had any running game at all, we would be much better off. Unfortunately, we don't. And he's not the kind of quarterback you can play behind an inept running game. So lots of questions in Morgantown. Not a great week to have to play Utah with 11 people out in the IR, Cody.
Yeah, it's not. But thankfully, Utah is going to walk into this game at least with some minor semblance of humility, finally, for maybe the first time in their existence in the conference. But it will be intriguing to see how Utah responds, because for 3 quarters they look like a good football team, right? They look like a very solid, legitimate football team, and then things got away from them in the 4th quarter. So it'll be interesting to see how they respond. Likewise, it'll be interesting to see how West Virginia responds, because it's easy to see that your back's up against the wall and you're having quarterback problems. You have an offensive line problems. You have probably the best defensive line in the Big 12. But is that going to be good enough to carry you throughout the course of the season? It's definitely perplexing, to say the absolute very least.
Speaking of perplexing, segueing into the next segment here, obviously there's a lot to talk about with you at Oklahoma State. Probably could have led off with this had Nicco not gotten hurt. Obviously, Gundy is out. We're going to talk about that. But Ren Baker in, obviously, I'm hearing the cries from Cowboy country for Ren Baker to come home.
That's right.
And this episode of Locked On West Virginia going to be brought to you by Square. And look, with Square College, everybody runs on Square. Your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. There are certain businesses that truly make the neighborhood feel like home, whether it's the local sports bar packed on game days, the coffee shop that knows your order by heart, or the corner deli that's been serving the community for decades. These are the places that bring people together. When neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. These local spots are what's making the neighborhood feel like home, and so many of them run on Square. So look, Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/LockedOnCollege to learn more. But before you do, go out, support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. And I'll see you at Square. See you in the neighborhood. See you at the movies. You remember that? Did you ever call into the movie theater growing up? Where I lived, you used to be able to call into the movie theater. Seinfeld did a spoof on it. Hello, this is the movie phone, or whatever it is, and then they would tell you what was playing for the day. Well, there was a woman that did it on Our Voice in West Virginia, and she would always say, "See you at the movies." Anyway,
hey, before we get to Ren, you had an interesting comment that I'm curious on your take on as well.
Oh yeah,
Timothy Green said, "Paul, I would like to ask you a question. Who do you think they might put as the next QB for WV?" Before we get to Ren, I'm curious as well. If Nicco's going to be out,
yeah, I think you have to start with Jalen Henderson. There's a couple ways you can go on it. I think Jalen Henderson is probably the way he's earned the opportunity to get a game, right, or at least a half. Up until now, he's got a series here or there. Last week against Kansas, you put him in the 4th quarter, albeit Kansas was playing a little bit of a prevent style defense. Just don't let anything over the top.
Yeah.
And Jalen ran for almost 100 yards, showed really good mobility, and is actually the kind of quarterback Rich Rod has always had in the offense, unlike Nicco, who is a little more stationary. So I think he's the move. I don't know, if you look at his Texas A&M stuff, he passed well at times for them in a more Jimbo Pro style offense where things were more timing based, 3, 5, 7-step drops. So,
Right.
He's in a different style offense a little bit because, obviously Jimbo does operate on the shotgun. So it's not that much different, but I think he's a good place to start. And then you got to make a business decision because I think Max Brown can play. I just don't know why he's not playing. He's obviously started at Florida in the past. I have no idea what's going on there. So I'm going to put that to the side and say, for now, since Max Brown hasn't played, I'm going to remove him in the situation. Now it's between Scotty Fox, who is a fabulous freshman that a lot of people think is a future of our program. So you bet on a kid that you paid quite a bit of money to, and Jalen Henderson to come from Texas A&M to Morgantown, or do you bet on Scotty Fox and say, look, we're just going to let you get better with these guys, and we've got our quarterback going in the next year as long as he plays well enough.
Yeah.
The questions that arise from that are, does it damage his confidence, et cetera? Obviously, he's mobile as well. Not as high in mobility as Henderson, maybe a step below that, but very mobile, certainly good enough to do everything in the offense and a better passer. So these are questions I don't have answers for, but I would say if, it would seem like more of you're probably giving up on any bowl game this season, that kind of thing, if you go with Fox. And you're still trying to win now if it's Henderson. So that's the two routes I think you have to be looking now. And then Max Brown is a wild card that, in my opinion, is the best passer on the team. And I mean, I've shown you guys, if you watch the show, absolutely that he can pass it. But he had 6 picks and 93 attempts last year at Charlotte. So his decision-making has not been great. So those are the answers. That's the very complicated answer, but that's the truth. I think you got to go with Henderson to start.
I think that, I don't know, whatever direction you go, I think it is going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. But you did mention opportunities, right?
Yep.
Oklahoma
Mike
State.
Gundy's out.
Yeah, well, we have an opportunity here. And if Ren Baker has the opportunity to catch some of this, my plea to Ren Baker would be, we need you. Please come back home. Save Oklahoma State from itself. I think unanimously, if you were to ask Oklahoma State country, probably 95 to 98% would say Wren Baker wholeheartedly needs to be the next guy in line to come help build Oklahoma State back up to where it's supposed to be, because we're not devoid of talent. We're not devoid of exposure. We're not devoid of expectations still yet. There are still high expectations in Stillwater, Oklahoma, and Wren Baker is going to be the hottest name in Stillwater, America. My problem is the Board of Regents in Stillwater might be getting in their own way. They seem to be slightly petty when it comes to how they're going to remove people from Oklahoma State University. I don't appreciate that. I think that it's imperative for Oklahoma State to land the next AD in a very big way, because if we do not nail the AD and we do not nail the next hire, we could be in a position, legitimately speaking, where we're applicable for the Pac-12 in the next few seasons. Because if you go 3-9, 2-10, 3-9, 4-9, 4-8, whatever, you're not going to be good enough exposure-wise. And here's the ridiculousness of it all. It seems like that the Board of Regents in Stillwater cares more about the beautification process than utilizing football as the avenue for your entire university. They want to pretend to be like a different version of KU, which I do not understand, because, correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, but isn't KU spending like $330 million flipping dollars right now on football?
They're investing. Yeah. Yeah.
So we need
investing.
a Ren Baker. We need somebody else that is a visionary, that has the ability to go get new donors, because that's what Oklahoma State is lacking. Let's call a spade a spade. Ever since Boone passed away and other figures have tried to step up and be the Boone, but they don't want to spend Boone money, okay? They want to posture like they're Boone. They want to have control over the BOR and pour some strings like a Boone, which is why we need a Ren Baker level individual to tell these dudes occasionally, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to go down that road. We're not going to hire that guy. I'm not going to allow you to infiltrate to that capacity. We do not need a yes man as the next athletic director. And my fear, and some of the fear around Stillwater, is we're going to drop the ball, screw the pooch, and we're going to find a way to not get Ren Baker at Oklahoma State. That might be the bigger fear than the head coach. Because if we do get a Ren Baker, and let's say the next head coach doesn't work out, that's okay. We have faith. But if we go with a yes man, we're going to continually have some difficulties in NIL because we're not going to get enough donors to step up to the plate that maybe don't want to play ball with some of the people pulling the strings behind the BOR at this very moment. So we need Ren Baker to save Oklahoma State from itself before we become potentially even slightly irrelevant.
My question to you is, what's the appetite for Ren? I mean, we talked about it over the weekend. I mean, I'll go ahead and tell people now, if you watched my show, I got eviscerated on, was it Sunday? You know, I talked over the weekend. You had some inklings. Obviously, I did a show based off the conversations we had, right? You know, you kind of had an idea that he was going to be fired this week. Let's just be honest about that.
I found out Saturday at 7:31 p.m.
Right. So I knew about it. So Saturday at 7:31 because we were talking. And so I did my show. And obviously, Ren Baker was the concern, not really Gundy, because of the Weiberg situation. He just coming off heart surgery.
Yep.
He's not got a contract. They've kicked that can down the road at a later date.
Mm-hmm.
That just doesn't sound good. And so if you're not going to have an athletic director, or if you're not signed to, if you're not tied to one guy, and I hear a lot of people love Weiberg, but
Yes.
you have to question his health after having heart surgery. It's not like you had a broken arm. So my question to you is, before you go, is what's the appetite for Ren? Is there any conversations about that being had, or is this your personal plea?
No. It's synonymous. I mean, you were on my live show a little bit earlier,
Right?
Just in the comments alone, the Ren Baker love in Stillwater, America,
It's
is
big,
very, very, very real. It's just not me. It's just not the donors or sources or people that I talk to. It is pretty unanimous that Oklahoma State fans are very well aware. I mean, okay, Mike Gundy's comments about NIL to Oregon, maybe it was a prelude to us getting drugged behind the woodshed. And
he definitely was a prelude. He knew.
And that is an obstacle in Stillwater. I don't think it's as big as an obstacle as it currently is being pushed, all right? But at the same point in time, West Virginia's over here. You're utilizing Pat McAfee. Okay, so we have the Des Bryants of the world that we don't use at all. Like that's
wild.
If there's one thing that Mike Gundy has done that is not great for Oklahoma State, it is probably that the connection with the old school legends is very, very, very lacking. Right? I've had several dudes on the show like Rashawn Woods and Bobby Reed and Tatum Bell and Corey Hilliard, all Cowboys that played in the NFL, that won Super Bowls, or started at Oklahoma State for years. All of these individuals talk about how it's not the warmest reception when they come back to Stillwater. It's not bad.
Why is that? Is it because he's so focused on football and winning? And
I could throw out speculative reasonings. And speculatively speaking, Mike Gundy, he likes to be the smartest guy in the room, right? Does that make sense? To my knowledge, and I've only met Gundy like twice, right? So my extensive face-to-face with him is pretty limited, but Gundy's kind of been an ass to people.
Yeah, I mean, he comes off like he can be. You know what I mean? He gives that vibe. Not every college football coach that's ever lived is nice. Bob Huggins wasn't always nice either.
Oh, yeah. No, and you need a little bit of that egotistical nature to you, right?
Yeah.
If you don't have at least a little bit of that egotistical, I'm gonna be a man because I'm 40 or whatever. If you're gonna be that guy, you have to be willing to be somewhat malleable. And Mike Gundy hasn't necessarily been malleable, right? He's been confrontational with the media, and ironically enough, right? So you saw yesterday, people were calling me several names in the book about how I'm this massive Mike Gundy sympathizer. The irony to all that is
you haven't been.
No,
you haven't been.
In 2022, I got hired into November 2022. I didn't get shows out until like December 2020. I was probably before March of 2023 that I'd already had a video out that Mike Gundy was kind of a limiting factor in Stillwater because he wasn't always at the facilities and he was relinquishing too much control to people. And I caught a lot of heat for that. I got bashed for that. And I got called a Gundy derangement syndrome, all this hoopla and craziness, right? But at the end of the day, I do think that we could have handled this better. I have not been a Mike Gundy sympathizer, but because I've done episodes about some of the inner workings of the things that were happening behind the scenes,
Because
that the
you follow recruiting.
SID that didn't like, the media people in Stillwater didn't like. I made a lot of enemies because I was the first person to come out and say, well, Mike Gundy's kind of screwing up. I was the first person in 2022 to say, I think Mike Gundy needs a 1-year deal predicated upon performance. And I got laughed at all the way up and down the hallways. I will also admit that this offseason, I bought into the changes. I thought that we needed to get rid of all the coaches. And I
The
thought
Ohio
by bringing
States,
in,
the LSUs, the whole thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
We brought in all of this top-notch consensus 4-star talent. We brought in all of these coaches that have coached together at different stops in the SEC since 2015. I believe in all of that. But it was a disaster this year. I do think that we needed to make this move. I don't agree with the timing because the players I've talked to today are pissed. I got a call just in the brief intermission between my show and this show. I know of a parent driving to Stillwater at this very moment saying that if my son wants to leave, I'm about this life. We shouldn't be finding out this way. It shouldn't be going down this way. So I hope
Those are all valid things.
I hope they know what they're doing. And I hope that Ren Baker is not only the first phone call, I hope he's the most aggressive and almost only phone call, because if we get somebody that is tentative, that's going to fall right into the hands. And I'm afraid that there's people behind the scenes that don't really want Oklahoma State football to be the front porch of the university.
Let's go to break on that. We'll finish our conversation on the other side of the break, guys, with Cody Stovall of Locked On Oklahoma State. Don't forget to like when you're here. Subscribe if you're new. A lot of good content coming in the later weeks, guys, not just today. We'll be right back. And this episode of Locked On West Virginia with Oklahoma State is going to also be brought to you by Game Time. Of course, we love talking about Game Time on the show, as they always do it monstrous on the Game Time side of things. And look, college football is back, and I couldn't be more excited. Tailgates, rivalries, energies in the stands. There's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually, getting tickets can feel a little bit more like the battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans, as it's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets, the best prices, no surprise fees. What you see, what you pay. Hell, I just pulled up Game Time, and in a couple taps, I saw amazing deals. And listen, I'm talking about your favorite college football games for as low as $25, and it'll make you holler. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets today with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase where the terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off today. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. That's swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today, and you'll answer the question of all questions. What time is it? It's game time. And, of course, we can't forget about our friends at Mazda. We love talking about Mazda because Mazda crafts awesome stuff, and they deliver confidence with every ride, with more IHS top safety picks awards than anybody else, at least as of August 2025. They craft cars for those who do more than simply move, after all. And like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Do that today with Mazda. Move and be moved. Back here with Locked On Oklahoma State, Cody Stovall. And even though I just said the name of your show, tell everybody where they can find you.
Locked On Oklahoma State. Dang it.
Imagine that.
How did you track me down? Yeah, at All Day O State on the X, and then O State All Day on all the other social media stuff.
Okay, so final thoughts on all this. Obviously, Mike Gundy, and for those of you that are just joining, I will recap the earlier first segment because we've gotten so many more hundred of you in here Nicco Marchiol seeing a specialist in Colorado. We're not sure the extent of the injury. We speculated earlier in the program that it's either something that could be potentially bad. Maybe he just wants a second opinion because he wants to play, or it could be a second opinion because he doesn't want to play and needs an excuse to wait till next year to play in front of a better offensive line. There are so many different ways you could look at this, because what made me think about it was Rich Rodriguez in his press conference went out of his way to say, look, he's in Colorado. We trust our staff 100%, but he's in Colorado, right? So that made me think, oh, he didn't have to say that. So, obviously they've done this on their own. That tells you a couple things you can draw from it, but it's all speculative. So no conclusions, but definitely speculative stuff, just to update a lot of you guys that came in late to this that are here because of the thumbnail. So don't want to leave you guys out on that. Nicco Marchiol's future is up in the air right now. And so we probably are going to be looking at a Jalen Henderson-led team this Saturday against Utah, which is scary in its own right. Now we get to Cody. What we've been talking about for the most of the show is Mike Gundy's fired. You knew about it Saturday. I knew about it Saturday because of you. Obviously, we didn't report it, but we knew about it. Well, you may have. I don't know if you reported it or not. I know we talked about it. And you've been telling me since before then how much you guys want Ren Baker to come home. Tell Mountaineer Nation why we should even allow this to happen, because, obviously Ren Baker is in a spot right now. I have to just say, I said this on your show, he can finally be the AD. He doesn't have to replace Neil Brown. He just hired Rich Rodriguez. He doesn't have to replace Bob Huggins, and this is a Bob Huggins level thing at my Oklahoma State. I would say Mike Gundy means as much to Okie State as Bob Huggins did to West Virginia. They're similar. They both won a lot of games. They're both pretty controversial. They both say a lot of the things that maybe certain people wouldn't want them to say. And here you are in this situation. And now, he's got girls that are in school in West Virginia. He loves it here. You made a pitch earlier, but I mean, I told you earlier, 60-40. I still think he'll probably stay at West Virginia, but I can see him. He's going to listen to you guys in Stillwater because of the ties to Eddie Sutton and crew.
Yeah.
Just give me your overall thoughts on all that.
Okay, well, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. The connection that he has to the past of Oklahoma State, where we were beyond wildly successful, especially in a sport like basketball. I'll tell you another reason is I think this is going to be another massive feather in the cap for Ren Baker. If Ren Baker is going to have aspirations, to potentially be the top AD in the United States of America, what he's done at multiple stops already, insanely impressive. What he's done at West Virginia specifically, with potentially putting you guys up into the very top bracket of the highest earners, spenders, NIL collectives in the Big 12, that is absolutely massive. But I would make the argument that it would matter more in Stillwater, Oklahoma, because of the devoid that we've had from the talent in basketball. If he's the guy that come in to replace Chad Weiberg and gets Oklahoma State basketball and Steve Lutz back to where it's supposed to be, that carries a ton of weight. If Josh Holiday is not going to be the face of Cowboy baseball moving forward, the next hire has to be a home run. And if we're ever going to have Steve Sabins come, yeah, you knew where I was going. You knew where I was going.
Oh, God.
If we're going to get Steve Sabins to come back after Josh Holiday, the Ren Baker connection makes it much more fluid, much more easily manageable. And I think
he's a conduit. Just call it what it is. He's a conduit, so you can just take everything we got.
Listen, Ren Baker, you're going to be one of the best to do it in WV country. And I think that's commendable, respectable. I love it. But you would be a legend in Stillwater, Oklahoma, with a statue potentially right next to Mike Gundy's if you come back and get Oklahoma State back in the path that we're supposed to be, so we do not end up in the Pac-12 or the bottom of the Big 12 hanging out in irrelevancy. You asked.
I did ask. It's just, I'm laughing because you say it's so funny. But, I mean, in all reality, this would be a massive loss for West Virginia, obviously. You can't really replace a Ren Baker, who, by the way, is.
I mean, you can, but you have to go find it.
Do you know who trained Ren Baker? I mean, he's just got so much experience. He's got so many connections. He's such a great hirer of people. I mean, that's the thing. Like, he's just great at putting the right pieces in place. I think where West Virginia was when he got here to where it is, and here's the thing too, he listens. He listens to the fans. Like, anytime I've ever reached out to him to have him on or anything like that, I've always gotten a response, right? As to where some people pretend like you feel like they're out of reach, you can't reach them.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. I've never felt that way with Ren Baker. He's a very approachable, great dude. He has flaws. Everybody has flaws. I have former coaches that call me all the time. One specifically that not a Ren Baker guy, right? Because of things. I mean, obviously you got to think people are being told yes and no to contracts and this and that, right? So feelings are going to get hurt. And so I do know certain people that are not a big fan of Ren because they think he's a spotlight guy. And, he likes the credit for things and such. He wears sunglasses. He wears Jordans everywhere he goes, right? Like, he's got one of the coolest West Virginia jackets you'll ever see. So, obviously, I think, if I'm taking myself out of the West Virginia part of this, obviously it would be a huge, massive pickup for you guys.
Well,
there's no doubt about it.
You just had a comment from Jupiter Mojo. Nope, not happening. Saban and McAfee wouldn't agree. Respectfully, Jupiter, Ren Baker's ties to Oklahoma State run way, 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 way deeper than anything he has going at WV. Again, I think he loves WV, but I also think that Oklahoma State is the only place that he would even entertain leaving for. And I do think that if Oklahoma State offered the right thing,
that's the picture there that I think of when I think of Ren Baker with the sunglasses.
Well, he can come John Travolta it up all he wants in Stillwater, America. But again, we're having this conversation not because it's a hope and a wish, because this is a viable, yes. Is
right.
Pat McAfee and Nick Saban and whomever else in Morgantown going to do everything they can to keep Ren? For sure, as they should. But I do think that if he got a significant answer on NIL, right? And so if we made a package delivered to Ren Baker that says that we will financially dedicate X amount of dollars so you can have at least what you're going to have at West Virginia in Stillwater, that could potentially be enough. If he has some guarantees that the Board of Regents isn't going to do a bunch of meddling,
it would take a lot.
Let him do his thing, then I think we could get Ren Baker. The only thing that I think prevents us from getting Ren would be our Board of Regents and some of the internal turmoil going on at the moment.
Because Ren Baker is the decision maker at West Virginia, right?
Well, right. He's not going to want to walk into an absolute – it's already a little bit of a shiznit show, just as it is. Ren's not going to leave West Virginia to come into something that he doesn't know that he can instantaneously make significantly better. And again, so I think we're going to have to make a presentation to Ren Baker as to why he should be the heir apparent. But at the same point in time, I think it's going to be really difficult. Why Ren Travolta? Yes. Okay. I like that.
You got to start calling him that from now on.
Ren Travolta. And then maybe you're the thumbnail guru of the company.
Yeah, right.
Maybe I could hire your services out.
Yeah. I mean, I'm always available. I mean, just like Ren, I'm sure there's a price. I'm like Ted DiBiase. Everybody's got a price. So, man, I appreciate you for coming on. We always have a good time when you do. Locked On Oklahoma State, great show. Obviously, I don't think you get enough credit for how good of a show you do. Be prepared, man.
I'm glad you brought that up. I will say in closing, I appreciate you. Yeah, what people don't seem to realize is because I made enemies with Gundy and his people in the SID very early on.
You're liberated.
I was always of the mindset, and I was being told this by people, you will never get the access and the respect that you may deserve at some point in time, as long as Mike Gundy and all of his SID cronies are still here. So it's always been potentially beneficial for me for Mike Gundy to no longer be the dude. But I still had to cover this, in my opinion, honestly. And I don't think it's great, the timing, for them to remove Mike Gundy at this moment. I've never been a massive Gundy guy. The couple times I've met him, were not good. Right? I did not get a good impression of Mike Gundy. But I have been a diehard Oklahoma State fan since I was a little kid. I've got O State tattoos. I legitimately do bleed this stuff. And because of the respect factor I have for Mike Gundy, that's precisely why I got ingratiated with the prospect of what this new team was going to look like, this new roster, new staff, all of it.
Indoctrinated? Is that what you said?
What's up?
Did you say indoctrinated?
Ingratiated myself with, right? Well, indoctrination could be somewhat applicable, but anywho, yeah, man, there's people at Oklahoma State University that have strategically, specifically made my job pretty daggone difficult.
Right. I get that. I understand that.
The biggest benefit selfishly would be, I would assume, I could be wrong, I could be egotistical in even thinking this, but if you go off of statistics from podcasting to the Spotify stuff, the YouTube stuff, I do think that my reach is something that is beneficial to Oklahoma State. And the more they've tried to squeeze me out, the more I've been able to kind of wiggle my way in. And if there's
You're like a hookworm.
I'm like a worm for sure. I don't know what kind.
Hookworm.
A hookworm. That makes sense.
You know what I'm talking about? You ever seen one of those?
No.
They've got like let's say this is their head. They've got the little claws that go this direction. So once they go in, you can't pull them out without ripping everything apart.
I feel like somewhere in there's a crippled joke, but I'm just gonna take it and roll with it.
For those that don't know, Cody has
I am mentally challenged. You can tell them it's okay. I went to the school for kids who can't read good, and I have problems with words occasionally as well.
What do you say, Bob? I appreciate you for coming on, brother. I know you got to talk about Doug Meacham. Probably got a show to do about that. There's a bunch of stuff. You got a coach's show. You got to talk about how you want Will Stein.
My phone's
what about Will Stein? That's a name. Somebody else put up John Gruden earlier. Would you be happy with that? No.
I like Gruden.
It's a little bit too Hollywood for you guys, though.
Well, not only that, I think when you look at it, right, Nick Saban got out of the game for a reason. Dabo Swinney is struggling and battling with the media for a reason. I think it's the same reason as Mike Gundy. The old school coaches, and this is why I will admit to you, I am intrigued to see how the experiment goes to some degree in round 2. And
you're gonna do huge numbers on your show, dude. Well, I'm telling you, I did 1 million views in December whenever Neil Brown got fired and Rich Rod got hired. You're going to do some big numbers, dude, over this next month either way.
Well, I don't care about that per se. I mean, it is obviously beneficial, but
I'm just talking about your show.
Nonetheless, I do appreciate it. Listen, at the end of the day, I don't like the look of this. And you mentioned I do have to talk about some potential replacement hires. Another thing that I have to talk about is when I say my phone's blowing up, a decent chunk of it is players and parents and recruits. We already lost our 4-star number 1 running back in the state of Oklahoma, Katie Batman. He just decommitted like 25 minutes ago. So we already lost him. I've already gotten word that 2 other Oklahoma top-end recruits are likely to make an announcement.
Listen, as somebody that just went through this with Neil Brown and the Rich Rod, we lost one of the best quarterback recruits in the country that we had locked up under Neil Brown, almost a 5-star guy. I don't know how we did, but we lost him, right? You just have to get used to the idea of it's over. Everything's zero, because otherwise you're going to be every single time you pick up the phone. I know you're like me when it comes to your team. So every loss really hurts, right? For a minute.
Yeah.
So, like whenever like you're going through that and it's like a lot of loss, what I had to do was get to a place of just start at zero, because if you can do that and realize that not one player is going to be back, possibly not one coach is going to be back, it's just you don't even know who they are yet. It makes it easier, to be honest. That'd be my best advice, because otherwise, man, like it can get a little heavy if you are as hardcore of a fan as we are, which is probably not recommended, but it's just where we are, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I do wear my heart on my sleeve, and it is. I mean, it's very, 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 very personal.
Raven, 80 new players incoming.
Yeah, and no, you are right. I mean, it is burn it down, build it all up again. But again, as I talked about on yesterday's show, the fiery passion is because I'm being told by the guys that do care, that do show up early, that do stay late to work out, that do extra film study. those dudes feel like this is not going, it's not being handled correctly. So do I mind losing most of the roster? No. I mean, after you have a 3-win season and then you lose the way you did to Oregon and then you get beat by Tulsa, you need to lose a decent chunk of this roster. But my biggest fear there is we're going to end up losing the guys who can rebuild a program.
Right.
And we might get stuck for the rest of the season, not all, but a decent number of guys that don't give 13 shits about Oklahoma State. They don't care about Cowboy culture. They don't care if we win, lose, draw, fire, hire. That is my biggest concern with this and the timing of it. The 30-day portal window is going to open. We already know that recruits are backing out at this very minute. I've talked to a couple parents just in between our conversations that are livid pissed, and they're driving down to Stillwater at this very moment. I don't think this was handled well at all, which is why I'm concerned about the Board of Regents. I'm concerned about somebody like a Ren Baker not getting the proper opportunity here. And it's going to be a unique moment for us, right? This is going to be something that regalvanizes Oklahoma State country. And we're able to keep at least, let's call it numerically speaking, if we can get 25 or 30 returning loyal and true, I bleed orange players for next season, I'm going to feel much better about the prospect of what
you don't want to be in our situation next year, because you're going to have another season like this season if you do. It's almost impossible to ingratiate 80 new and be good in year one without, like we talked about on your show, a coach that brings a bunch of his players. That's the only way, right? Which may be a viable strategy if you have to win now. Like, I don't know how you do it, but I mean, I guess you find a coach that won that's at a lower level that can bring his players with him. But, even that can be risky. So we're way over here, though, man. I appreciate you for coming on. Guys, before we go off, we got to let you know about another big moment for Locked On and college football fans. Locked On and Fire TV present College Football's Kickoff, your ultimate football weekly preview with Drake Toll, Locked On Big 12. He also leads the conversation along two-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson and former college star Jesse Hawley, and, of course, the local experts like me and Cody. College football preview only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on FAR TV, as we say in West Virginia. We don't say fire, we say FAR. Appreciate y'all very much, man. Cody, I appreciate you. We'll see you guys on another episode. I got to go live here again here in a couple hours. We'll see you then. Make sure you check out Cody on Locked On Oklahoma State. And we're out of here. Like, subscribe, share the whole 9. Wookiee noises.
Sorry I made this thing run so daggone long.